cool part about this. If I just scrunch up this side of the cylinder, it's gonna become a cone, right? I wonder if I can do that for you. Is there any way for me doing that? I could maybe do it with perspective warping. Let's see if we can actually prove that, because you always have to ask me to prove stuff. Otherwise, then I don't know what I'm talking about, and why should you believe me? So let's go ahead and hit the scale tool, hit perspective. Can I scrunch you up? Ooh, maybe I can. Maybe I can, but it's really weird. It's really weird. Oh no. Perhaps liquefies, my friend. Okay, this is gonna be really scuffed, but you'll get my idea really quickly. Oh, cool, look. It's respecting the contour. You're gonna get what I'm gonna say really. So you're starting to see it, right? You're starting to see it? Like, basically, everything is the same, except those lines that used to be flat are now angled. They're angled towards the top. I'm doing a horrendous job with this. So let's just repaint this. But you're starting to see it, right? You're starting to see just how important the contours are. Okay, so get rid of this abomination. We'll just leave it there. It's my mark of shame. Okay, so if a cylinder is like this, a cone is going to be the exact same way, but like this. So one end is crunched up. So if the shape on a cylinder is going to be like that for top down, the shape on the cone is going to be like that, top down. Again, it's going to the same point, but just imagine all these points are now the same point. Okay, so that's going to be the shadow shape for a cone. Again, the specular light is going to be a straight line for a cylinder. It's also going to be a straight line for the cone, except going towards that one point now. That's the one singular difference. Everything else is the same. The same technique, the same steps, the same... Well, shadow's going to be different, of course. It's going to be a triangular shadow instead of a square shadow. But every other step is the same for a cone. Okay? And that's why I'm going to be asking you guys for this week. I'm going to ask you to do one page of cylinders and one page of cones. Okay, this is going to be your homework for me this week. So it's overall 2 A3 pages of cylinders and cones. Okay, pretty straightforward. This week's actually really easy because last week was really difficult because we were doing spheres, but this week is a lot more straightforward because it's just a matter of simplifying the sphere idea to fit against cylindrical objects, and we're good to go, right? So one page cylinders, one page cones, and these are going to be 8 each, so 8 cylinders and 8 cones, so overall 16 objects. So with that said, I'm going to preview what I'm going to be doing for you guys maybe next week. Next week I'm going to be using this information to teach you guys something like this. So we're going to use real world stuff, and we have all the primitive knowledge we need thus far. We're going to start to paint stuff like this, and how we're going to do it, we're going to first draw stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and do some layer arrangement here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find where our shapes fit into this overall idea, and they might become a little bit more complex. For example, the back of the ladybug, let's just take its head for example. It's going to be spherical, or it's going to be circular on the back. I'm going to draw through here. It's going to be outwards over there. So this is going to be next class, wherein I'm going to be teaching you guys, or rather demonstrating how to get the contour on any object. So this is going to be the contour. So once we find the contour, we're going to be able to light it, right? If you guys are wondering about this edge over here, that's a back edge. So I don't really differentiate it in my head, but if you want this to be very clear, I'll go ahead and erase it, because that's a hidden edge. But this is what we're going to be doing, and this is a little bit more complicated. I was actually tempted to do this today, but I feel like with cylinders and cones, there's enough to think about. Let's keep it slow, right? We're not going to go anywhere. So the next class, we're going to be doing this. So hope you guys are ready for that. It's going to be really fun, because then we're going to define, let's just say that on this side, and then we're going to figure out exactly what's going to fit here. Is it more cylindrical? Is it more conical? It's a big question, right? Because sometimes it's very easy, because this is literally just a cylinder with a smaller side and a larger side, and we're going to do this. And then using all the information that you already have right now after this class, you can just paint it up like this, right? And that's awesome. That is so cool to me, because we're not that far off, right? Because now, after the end of this class, Even if you guys have just been paying partial attention to it, you realize just how much of this you can already do, and it's crazy. That's just a half cylinder. That's just a half, I guess not really a cylinder, but a half spherical cylinder. Cylinder, cylinder, cylinder. Right? Some of these are a little bit more complex, but it's still manageable, and I'll show you how in the coming days. And some of this is just flat faces. This is basically a cube, but with three, instead of 4 sides, it has 3 sides. And again, more cylinders, more cones. You're almost there. You're almost there. And then from this to this, it's child's play. It really is nothing. This is the hard part. This is the easy part. You gotta trust me. Well, that's it for our lesson for today. Hopefully you guys got plenty from it. But again, I'm going to ask you to do these for volume, just to build up that mileage. But now we're going to move on to doing the homework, because I think there's a good bit to go over. I'll go over it pretty quickly, but we should be alright. So let's go ahead and begin with that. I'll take a quick little drink of water, and we should be pretty good to go. If you're behind on the homework, because somebody asked, you should definitely still do the homework. Very, very important. Okay, I have a bunch of homework. I think some people submitted a little bit late. That's okay. I'm not going to be a stickler for it. Let's go ahead and get everything in order. So, Howling Fenrir is first. I think you have a different name on this Discord, right? We'll go over this. I think most of you guys, I should say, because I've been keeping track of your progress throughout the week, and most of you guys have been doing a really good job. In fact, dare I say, you've been doing a better job than I did when I first did my spheres. So, you guys are doing well. Okay, let me grab this here. This is going to be a little bit delayed because I have all of your work downloaded except for a few people. Okay, let's get started. But yeah, definitely do the homework if you haven't already. The previous weeks, don't skip steps. I keep talking about steps, do more steps. So don't skip the overall steps, please. So do the cubes and then do the spheres, and then you can do these, the cylinders and the cones. That I think is a very good progression. And progression is good because it's not intimidating. Oh, I think I messed up with my string. Go ahead and remove that. Okay, this is the first homework that we need to review. Let me just double check about who this is, because it's not labeled. Please label your homework, it makes my job a little bit easier. Okay, I think this is somebody that used to be in my chat. Let me just double check. Sorry about this, just so the person knows. Actually, I think they'll already be able to recognize their homework, right? So we should be pretty good to go. Okay, so whoever this is, you know who you are, because your name's different on the Discord. But let's go ahead and begin. So, right off the bat, pretty good impression, pretty decent. You are fumbling a little bit in your core shadow. I'd like you to be a little bit more specific over here. So again, everything should respect the core shadow, so don't lose your focus when you do this. So remember, everything follows the core shadow. Please be careful. Because every time you don't, it's again causing an upset, an unrest, and it is progressively going to cost you roundness, right? Because already that looks more round to me. Because before it was a little bit helter-skelter. Be a little bit more careful with that. Also, your background gradation could be a little bit more subtle, because right now it looks like smoke, but I prefer you to kind of gradiate this naturally into the background if possible. I don't mind the way it looks, I think it looks cool. But a little bit more natural would be nice. Something like that looks a bit natural to me. Because you don't want to give up the game, right? You don't want this to be obvious, to say, hey, I'm doing this to trick your eye. Better to just trick your eye instead, than to show what the trickery is. Otherwise, pretty okay. Again, same issue over here. Be a little bit consistent. Take your time with these curved lines. Some stuff over here that's a little bit questionable, but it's okay. I can see maybe why that might work, depending on what's costing. But yeah, not too bad for this page. Okay. We'll close this up. Next page over here. This one, okay. I think a little bit too dark here. Please try to follow the halfway to black if at all you're having this issue, but maybe you don't know that it's too dark. So this one over here, a little bit too dark, remember? If I halfway to black it, I get this kind of value instead, which is a lot more kind of believable, just try to realize that you don't need crazy contrast in order to make something look spherical. Contrast is good, but artificial contrast will tend to kind of bite you. So be a little bit careful, because if I just lighten this up, it's not like you're not gonna see a sphere still, right? You're still gonna see a sphere, just a sphere that looks a bit more natural to our eye. Because you have to ask the question then, where's the darkness coming from, right? Why is it so dark? And then you don't really have an answer, right? You might say, okay, it's a local value change, but that doesn't make too much sense because it's not clearly defined in the area of light. There's too many questions to be answered there. Even that's better. And I would say that could be even lighter at this point. Okay, so be careful. Use halfway to black. Again, I've demonstrated that in the class before. Don't go crazy with your shadows. This one also kind of okay, a little bit better, but just be a little bit careful about this, okay? You're halfway to black. Don't get too contrasted, but still we're doing okay. Some of the techniques okay. Let's go ahead and hit the next one up. So similar issues over here. I think we could do better with the technique over here, because right now we're getting a little bit too wibbly wobbly. Let's be consistent with the contour line, because the less consistent we are, the less round it's going to be. Again, same issue with the value there. Be a little bit careful about that. Needs to be lighter. I see you doing some double bounce here. I'm okay with double bounce. Not too much of a problem with that. We're not going to talk about too much of double bounce ideas here, but for now it's okay. For ones like this, maybe stronger core shadow would be nice. It would add a little bit more roundness to the whole object. So again, all I care about is, do I see a sphere when I look at this? So if it doesn't look like a sphere to me, or it could be more spherical, I'm going to make a change. So that already helps me. It helps me see that it's a sphere, because again, more core shadow is going to add to more sphericalness. But overall, okay. Again, I'm going to ask you to be a bit more diligent. Maybe over here, we can push the specular a little bit more to make it look better. So again, gradiating everything. Even the specular can be gradiated. So that looks a bit more natural than this. Okay. Otherwise, again, not too bad. You did a pretty decent job with the specular over there. And we go to the last page from you. Yeah, again, same problems I feel like overall. Again, the cast shadow over here could be as clean. I like this cast shadow a lot. Looks awesome. This one over here, a little bit unclean, so be careful about that. The roundness technique seems to be a bit better on this page overall. So not too bad. And the contrast as well is pretty okay on this page, so not too bad on that. Just a little bit messy with this background stuff, so try and be more subtle. It'll deal with a much more kind of cleaner presentation overall. It'll lead to that. But yeah, not too bad overall, pretty okay. These are very acceptable spheres. So, okay with that. I think that's it for the late submissions. We can go ahead and go to my folder now. I can bring in one by one the guys that are submitted earlier. So we can start with that really quickly. Yeah, but good job. Good job so far. I'm happy with what I see. Again, they could be better, but the sphere idea is still there. So just a little bit of diligence, a little bit of cleanliness, and we should be really good to go there. Okay, let me just close the stuff that I'm not looking at right now, just so this whole process is easier. But I think we're in really good standing so far. This guy we can leave him up. Okay, this is KKZ on the Discord. Thank you for labeling your homework, I appreciate it. So, how are we doing, KKZ? Overall, not too bad. Not too bad whatsoever. Yeah, contouring is there, better than the last page that I saw. A little bit of airbrush stuff, but not too bad at all. Okay. Yeah, alright, not too bad of a page. You could maybe push the contrast a little bit more and try to use the background to your benefit over here. I think it's okay if you say it's light enough, I don't need anything else. But you can maybe push the presentation a little bit by adding that light that we talked about behind the object. It can add a little bit more to the presentation, you see that? But overall, not bad, yeah? Not bad. Good technique overall. Some bonsai consideration there, a little bit fancy for an arrangement. But yeah, not a bad page. Not a bad page whatsoever. Some areas over here, you're beginning to lose the contrast. So when you have lighter ideas over here, remember that this light also has to follow this idea, okay? So make sure that whenever you have this idea, like areas like this for instance, make sure that when you are doing this, it happens in, let me cut the opacity really quickly. So when you're doing this, right, you're still doing it with the idea of it being on a sphere. So everything has to be on a sphere. So do it like that instead. So don't just truncate it randomly like that. try and add that idea that this is also still curving. So depending on your perspective, you'd have a line like this maybe, or a line like this, but never just an ambiguous line. Because the more you do that, the more round it's going to be. That's why something like this, to me, looks more round than something like this, because the roundness is being considered at every stage. So be a little bit careful, but overall, decent page. I'm happy with what I see. You're free to move on to the cylinders and cubes. I think you're going to be good. This one with your materials. Okay. We're getting a little bit strange with the core shadow. I think this one you can already tell. It doesn't look super spherical because, again, I don't see that clear terminator line. I don't see that clear core shadow. So we're having a little bit of problem over there. This one, not too much of an issue. We'll get into materials a little bit later. But you're on the right track already with stuff like this. You probably have more bits of specular over there to add to the presentation. Because each one of these is like a microsphere. So it'll have its own core shadow, it'll have its own cast shadow, it'll have its own specular light. So treat it that way. So each one of these will be something like this, right? It'll have something like that on that side. And if it's large enough, it might even have a cast shadow on the other side, depending on how it's situated, right? So you see that's already going to giving me a more of a believable effect, but not too bad overall. I'm okay with that. Yeah, taking into consideration the core shadow, maybe the value is a little bit too harsh here, but it's okay. It's acceptable. This one, maybe the bounce light could be gradiated a bit better. You did a better job over here with the bounce light. Here it kind of stops awkwardly, but nothing kind of stops that way the sphere. Remember, it continues to go throughout the sphere because it's gradual. Everything is gradual. I think the specular look quite nice on this one. Not bad. This one, acceptable, I think. Acceptable. Getting a little bit blurry, but still okay. This one also pretty successful. Again, bounce light, I had to ask you to be a little bit more careful. If you're going to do this kind of stuff, do that. But then after you do that, remember to go back and gradiate. It is important. So you can still do the same thing that you're doing already, but improve it by just gradiating slightly. So that already looks better to me, because it's gradiating that idea. So whenever you add a new idea to your canvas, please make sure to gradiate it. Same thing over here. A little bit too cut short, I feel like. We could do better. We could go a little bit more like that. And add to the presentation again. Looks more natural now. So gradation is important. Don't let things be super distinct like that, okay? So I have no issue with you adding these ideas. But again, a lot of these ideas are added, but they're not integrated well. Because again, I expect to see that gradation. Don't put things sharply, okay? For things to look more natural and look more believable, gradation is going to be very important. Otherwise, we're doing okay. Maybe the core shadow, I have to ask why would the cast shadow be like this unless this is on the same material as it's made of? Maybe it would make some sense. But otherwise, don't put material to just for the sake of adding material. That might not be the best idea. But looks okay. It's acceptable. Maybe a little bit too dark, because halfway to black on the floor is right over there. So a little bit lighter than you have it, but I think it's okay. Again, remember, cast shadow is being caused by the object. So again, it doesn't, just because you have the material on the object doesn't mean that the object has to cast on the same material, if that makes any sense to you. So be a little bit careful about that. But otherwise, pretty okay. Yeah, getting there, definitely. I think a very acceptable page of normal spheres. And I'm glad to see you doing some fancier stuff. Hopefully some of my advice will apply. Remember, it has to be on the surface, so it'll have this kind of profile. It would curve like that. It wouldn't be just straight on like this. Curve everything. So it's just a matter of being aware and being diligent. So I think just being a little bit more aware will solve this problem for you. But otherwise, pretty good. Pretty good so far. Let's move on to the next one. This is a page of spheres from Suave. Yeah, I think acceptable. Very acceptable. Some things I want to point out here is that when you have your lighting over here, be a little bit careful about your perspective, because I think most of the time the contour line is going to be like this, right? Here, 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 and this might even curve towards the top, depending on how you're considering this. But for now, I think it's okay. I think it's perfectly possible. It's just I would prefer this to be gradiated a bit better. So maybe a little bit more gradation, same as the last guy. That I think looks more natural to me than having it be so distinct. Yeah, but otherwise pretty successful, I think. Pretty okay. Yeah, not bad at all. again, this whole face over here, you're flattening your stuff up by having it be just one flat value. So remember, the more gradation, the more you're going to indicate its curve. Because right now, almost inadvertently, right, because I asked for spheres, you're drawing something like this, where it's spherical for the most part, it's flat on the bottom. It's flat on the bottom. Okay? So remember, unless that's your intention, gradiate this further, all the way to the tip. Okay? Because it might be a good kind of indication for your friends in the classroom, where if at all I have a ball that's just flat on the bottom, well, this is how I'd probably paint it, right? Me personally, I would almost add additional information there, like this, if it was flat on the bottom, to do something like a flat bounce light maybe. So that would look like this instead. So that kind of adds, again, gives me the more believable idea. So gradiate everything. Don't forget, guys. Everything must be gradiated. But okay, I think quite acceptable. Quite acceptable page. Not bad at all. Okay, moving on to Dead's homework. Also try and label your stuff, guys, if you can. It helps the people that are watching the stream to contact you later on if they have questions. Not too bad, Dead. Some of your shapes are getting a little bit radical, but I'm not going to harp on it too much. Some of it also seems unfinished. I'm not going to comment on the ones that are not finished at all. And also don't jump into color just yet. If you are not confident with the technique just yet, maybe don't jump the gun. Do the hard stuff, do the tedious stuff, and then this stuff is going to be a lot easier. This one's quite acceptable. These two, not bad at all. I do want you to put the cast shadow in. It's important, so don't jump the step just yet. Put the cast shadow. It's going to upgrade the whole presentation. For this one, for the accent light, I like the fact that it's gradiated. I like the fact that it's following the contour. Yeah, not bad. That's not bad. But put the cast shadow in, put the specular in, have the core shadow be a little bit more defined, and you should be good to go. I'll talk about the colors more when we're talking about colors in general, when we go on to material spheres sometime down the line. But that looks okay so far. For this one, for this page, again, maybe a little bit unfinished, so finish your work, please. Yeah, not bad. Not bad in the other ones. Maybe a little bit less tangential light there. It's getting a little bit bright. And maybe the specular could be a little bit less harsh. I don't mind the way that it is right now, but maybe a little bit less harsh towards the boundary. Maybe look a little bit more natural, like that. But otherwise, okay. It's not the full number, so try and get your numbers rounded out. Do all of the 16. That's, I think, my minimum requirement. Because you need to do a lot of this stuff to get the technique ingrained into your bones, so that when you're doing your larger projects, it's not going to be too much of an issue. But I think the ones that you did complete, I think they're perfectly acceptable. Put the cast shadow in like you did for this page, finish your work, and we should be fine. But yeah, overall, not bad on the ones you completed. Okay, Belgian next. The boy Belgian. New document. Let's see what you have. Okay, very nice stuff. Take a drink of water really quickly here. Okay, not bad, Belgian. I think we could maybe do a little bit better with the contour. So make sure the contours are curved a bit more than you have them over here, just to convince your audience a little bit more, right? So right now it's somewhat curved, but you're kind of wavering towards the edges over here, right? So right now if I draw the contour for you, it sort of looks like you're doing this, where you're thinking circle, 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 and then as you get towards the edge, you're kind of faltering a little bit, okay? So let's try and push through with the circle idea all throughout the contour. So we'll make these a little bit rounder, okay? Because if I was just going to select this really quickly, like that, and if I just grab my airbrush, and I pushed it even more circular, like that, I think it would improve the overall sphere. So that, I think, improves the sphericalness compared to that, which looks a little bit more flat. So a quick little tip for this would be that when you're doing your contouring, don't think about stopping near the edge. Just go past the edge entirely. So think about drawing a small half circle every single time you draw the contour, right? You don't need to draw the full half circle or the full cut circle, but think about it when you're drawing, right? Because this has to eventually turn around into the other side. So if it's turning around in space, chances are it's going to be a little bit rounder than the way you have it. But your technique seems good. Maybe this over here could be graded a little bit better. But overall, I think it's a presentable page. You did a pretty good job. This one over here, please remember the overall idea. You're trying to make a clear sphere. So when you do this, an alarm bell should go off in your head saying, wait a second, this doesn't look different from my canvas. I can barely see that edge. So for that, you would probably say, okay, instead of adding darkness to the side, I would maybe consider adding lightness. This is really important because the canvas part, the background part, it's not a secondary part of our assignment. It is part of the primary. Because again, imagine you were drawing armor, you were drawing a bird, you were drawing anything you want. If it's getting lost in the background value, you should be immediately jumping on that saying, hey, I'm not going to let you just falter. I'm not going to let you get lost in the background. I need you to be here in my presentation. So remember this stuff. Make sure to add that lightness behind just to ensure that people are seeing what you're presenting, right? It doesn't do you any good to hide stuff or let stuff be hidden just because you're following the rules, okay? But as far as following the rules, I think this is pretty good as a page. I like this stuff. Pretty okay. This is a reference-based one. I think I'll look to your references. Be a little bit careful about this again. So when you're adding stuff onto your cube, onto your sphere, ensure that it's following the contour. So this I think is a little bit more spherical in reference as per my memory. So remember, everything on it is going to still follow that contour, okay? So everything that goes in the sphere is going to follow the contour. Otherwise, not too bad. This one again, maybe the specular could be a little bit heavier. But again, you're following the contour pretty okay on this one. You're curving around, Good. I like what I see. Okay, that's your first page. Your second page. Yeah, some of these are pretty natural. This one over here. Not bad, not bad. From here, from reference, I'm assuming. Yeah, pretty good. I'm not unhappy. I would maybe have liked you to cast a shadow on this one, because you see how much strong of a presentation these ones look like compared to these ones. But even though the technique is beautiful on this one, it's an incomplete presentation because I don't have that shadow. So it's a common issue with refs. We forget stuff that we already know. But cast a shadow and then see if your cast shadow can match the quality of your sphere. It's important, right? Because we want to get a good whole understanding of what we're doing over here. But this is pretty good. Again, same issue over here. Don't flatten it out. So make sure that when we're doing this kind of stuff, we curve around, right? Curve around. Every little thing matters here. So curve around. Just like you did for this, do it for this one as well. So again, I'm going off of memory based on the reference you gave me sometime earlier. But it's okay so far. Just bear in mind that this one over here looks so much rounder than this one over here, because again, this one over here, again, ambiguous with the core shadow. So this goes back to the idea that even if it's off of ref, sometimes you need to modify it a little bit to make sure it reads properly. Because again, it needs to read as sphere. We can't let the audience do any homework, or you can't make them do homework to kind of figure out what they're looking at. They're going to look at stuff and they're going to make conclusions. So be a little bit careful about that. Maybe the specular here can be a little bit smaller, a little bit high on the specular. That's okay. I think it's still acceptable. And over here again, you're becoming a little bit straight when it comes to the gradation. So be careful about your contours. It happens to everybody, so don't worry about it. But again, maintain that contour all throughout. Maintain it. Okay? Because every time you do so, it's adding more to the sphere. But overall, good job. The ref ones look pretty okay. I think you're in good shape here. So have fun with the cylinders and the cones. I think your adventures through spheres are pretty okay so far. Okay, we got Rico next. All right, Rico. Pretty interesting presentation on this one especially. And this one I think is quite successful. You did a pretty good job on this particular page. I would maybe point to slight amounts of gradation in the core shadow, a little bit more than you have right now. Okay? And this is just an adjustment, right? Because I think your technique's pretty good. Nice round gradations. Pretty good. Maybe a little bit more blending near the core shadow to make this look a bit more natural. Something like that maybe is enough to improve the presentation. Just a bit more. We'll cut the edge off of that core shadow. Same thing over here. You see this is a little bit too stark, right? But I think technique's okay. Pretty good page, man. I like your presentation. Quite fun. Maybe a little bit more on the bounce light side, but I see a little bit there already. So you put your time into this page, and I can see it. So yeah, pretty good. The highlight looks okay. Specular light. Some of these are a little bit dipping in terms of the diligence, but I don't think it's too much of an issue. Pretty good. Pretty fun page to look at, definitely. This one, same issue. So your technique is good, good attention to background, all that stuff. Cast shadow could be a little bit darker. It's okay. I think the major issue with your work right now is think about the core shadow and don't make it so distinct, okay? So I think looking at references it'll be a great thing for you to look at. So go ahead and make sure that this core shadow is a little bit less harsh, okay? And that's going to make your presentation look even better. But overall, pretty strong submission. Not that much wrong with it. Just a simple change that'll take you quite far, I think. But pretty good. Maybe the accent light a little bit strong there. So maybe dim that a little bit more. Same thing goes for over here. This is almost like a rim light now. Like a flashlight's right behind the object, but it's not too much of an issue. I think it's okay. Yeah. Not bad, dude. Not bad. Just be careful about your core shadow. That's your one major mistake. Otherwise, okay. Pretty alright. Next, we move on to Salted Seagull. Hey, pretty good, man. Pretty good. I'm quite happy with what I see. Your specular could be a little bit more obvious, I think. Could be a bit more towards a point, because again, the more line-looking your specular becomes, the more line-oriented it becomes, the less spherical the whole presentation becomes. So these ones are quite strong. I like it. Good presentation, good contouring, good cast shadow. The core shadow is being gradiated. Core shadow has been paid attention to by adding a little bit onto it. Yeah, strong page. Very strong page. Nice. Very nice. Second page. Yeah. Overall pretty okay. Core shadow on this one, a little bit too strong. Remember that this is the same material, so there's no way that it's going to be that dark really. Unless there's no ambient light whatsoever. It's possible, but I think it's possible for sure. It's not necessarily a mistake. So this is off of ref, it'll be fine. But if this is from your imagination, then be aware that this needs to be a decision that you're making. So most of the time for natural contrast, it would just be halfway to black. But yeah, I like this one. The glass sphere, pretty okay. Yeah, good page. This one again, remember the shape of the specular matters. So you're making that mistake a little bit consistently. So be a bit aware of that. This one is better over there. That one's better over there. Yeah, overall, yeah, pretty good job. I think you got a lot out of this assignment. So good stuff, Seagull. Very good page. Thanks for submitting. I'm gonna close a few of these documents before my computer crashes. A lot of you guys doing this homework. I'm very happy to see it. And this is gonna help you a lot because we're gonna be doing full paintings of elephants and tigers and leopards and lizards very soon, right? So all of this stuff is going to be again brought up when you're doing those things. So if you're getting it right now, I have a lot of confidence in your ability to just basically paint anything for me. It's going to be good. Okay. I think we'll mix it up a little bit. Some people have submitted their cubes this week, so we'll go over those really quickly. Cube 1, Cube 2. Okay, Wesley. Not bad, dude. Not bad. I think you're already aware of some of the problems, but I'll list them out for you right now. This could be gradiated a bit more. So I want to see this going from one value to a slightly lower value. Right now, everything's the same value, so be a bit careful about that. For your edges, make sure to do the intermediate value thing we talked about to make things a bit more natural. So for this case, it would be something like that. And I'd ask you to go ahead and adjust your edge value here to something like this. Because again, we don't want to be painting perfect 3D cubes. We want to be painting something that looks a bit more natural. And things that are natural have a little bit of edge to them. So make sure that you mess up the edges a bit more. Even on the outsides, right? Even on the outsides, I'm going to have to ask you to go a little bit messy with them. A little bit softer. Just to cut that 3D kind of feel. It's really important to us to do this because even when we do metals and things like that, we want to have control about the edges. But overall, I think your value selection and your cast shadows are pretty okay. You're having a slight issue with your cast shadow logic, so keep this consistent. I think the problem is that maybe you're not choosing parallel lines as much. So remember, the cast shadow would be like this. So this, if this is going to be this direction, then this will be this direction, and then this will be this direction for a simplified cast shadow. Which means the cast shadow will be like that. I remember you asking me a question about how do I figure out what plane the shadow is on? And the answer is you don't have to actually, because as long as you keep these lines consistent, because your cube is in perspective, the shadow will follow suit and also be in perspective. So you actually don't need to worry about that. It's actually automatic, which is really cool. So because these lines are creating these lines, the shadow is always in perspective. Otherwise, pretty natural looking. Just complete the overall steps, a bit more gradation, a bit of edge, and you should be pretty good to go. Maybe add the specular thing we talked about. So specular looks like this basically. So I add in a line of bright light. Again, things to up the presentation value. So it's like that. And then of course, I gradiate it. Right? It looks really cool already. And we did basically nothing. Fantastic. We're almost all the way there. So we should be pretty good to go here. Not bad at all. If you have any additional questions, and this applies to anybody, if you have any follow-up questions about your homework, just DM it to me and I'll get back to you. We have Ray next. The illustrious Ray. Yeah, I think you did a really good job, Ray, on this week's. Pretty goddamn good. Yeah, not much to say about this, I think. Pretty solid. Maybe a bit more visible specular on that one. Same thing over here. If at all you have a flat value ray across a large amount of your surface, that should be a red flag, okay? Because the less gradation you see, the less you can convey somebody about the shape of something. Because every time you have gradation, you can always draw those lines, right? Because of the gradation. But with things like this, it kind of flattens the image out because there's this unseemly area in between that you don't really have true contour around. So be a bit careful about that. If there are contours there, make them more obvious. But yeah, pretty good job, man. I don't have much to say about this. I think you followed things quite well. This one may be a bit ambiguous. I would like to see a bit more roundness there, a bit more gradation, because right now the lights are a bit random. I see a light spot over there, a light spot over there. Be a bit careful about these. So remember, when you're going to make any change, because it don't matter if you add any extra light, make the change and then gradually gradiate it along the surface, and it's always going to look natural no matter what you do. Because eventually what we're going to be doing, guys, is we're going to be laying like textures on top of this. So for example, if there was the letter A, I write the letter A on top of this. I'm not going to write it like this, right? I'm not going to just do A like that. I have to do something like this, where it follows the contour, right? So A would be something like this. So you kind of get what I'm saying, right? So whenever you add anything onto the surface, you have to do so with this kind of idea. And not just that, right? But let's just say I'm treating this a bit more seriously. So let's just say I want to add a red A on this. So again, I need to follow the contour, obviously. And this is why I ask you guys to follow the contour, because you're going to be doing fancy stuff like this later on. So I follow the contour as best as I can. And then I don't leave it here, because remember, this is now not even following the light. So I need to make sure it follows the light. So I just hit a soft light, and now it's taking the light value from the actual sphere that's underneath it. And that's not all, because remember, transition and stuff like that, right? So we need to make sure that this A over here is not just perfectly on the sphere. It's not perfectly on it, but it's randomly, it's kind of scraggly on here. And then the more I do stuff like this, the more it looks like it belongs. And that's beautiful. So I'm going to be teaching you guys to do this stuff much more in depth later on. But this is why I ask you guys to focus on the contour, because it's all going somewhere. Everything that I say to you is something that I use actively when I paint stuff. So it's all important, but pretty goddamn good page, Ray. Really good job. Second page from you. Yeah, also quite nice. Quite nice. Maybe a cast shadow here. I understand it's coming from the top, but a little bit of cast shadow would be nice there. But yeah, I think quite successful. Good job. Yeah, overall, really good job. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this. Super good. And I encourage you guys, when you see good work, right? Also, I see a little face down there. When you see good work, don't hesitate to contact the people if you have questions. You say, how did you do that? How did you do this? You know, ask questions, because again, I don't have expert level information, right? I have information that you might not have. It's really important to go ahead and talk to people, right? To talk to other people that have done other work and see what they can offer you. Okay, we have Cap's homework right now. Cap, I think maybe a little bit more gradation is going to suit you really well. A bit more gradation in all these areas, in the shadow, in the light. So follow the steps that I've already demonstrated in the video. You should be pretty good. But yeah, this is getting a little bit messy. So clear gradation from dark to light would be nice. Again, light to dark would be nice. Right now it looks a little bit more illustrative, but even if it's illustrative, it has to follow those rules. This one's not bad, but again, remember that gradation stuff we talked about. Make sure to follow it. So now that you've seen the other people's homework, you kind of get an eye for what you need to be pursuing. So you should be pretty good to go there. Same thing over here. Maybe a little bit better in certain areas. Definitely in the light, I see more gradation. But in the dark, we're getting a bit more random here. So try not to be random. Try to be step, step, step. So step of darkness, step of light. So dark step over here. Even this much is better, because at least there's some idea of hierarchy. But remember that everything is gradual, so you need to make it gradual, okay? So gradually goes from light to shadow, and then shadow to light. But beyond that, I think it's okay. At least your number 1, number 2, number 3 is okay in terms of your steps. Everything further, I think look back to the video and also look at other people's homework and see what you like and kind of figure out how or what step you're missing based on the steps that I've given you. They're pretty okay, not bad at all. We got Crazen in here, and I think he's our last one. All right, Crazen. Yeah, I think pretty okay job. Not too bad. Maybe it could be a little bit rounder on the core shadow, but the technique is good. Spheres look very acceptable. Yeah, not bad. Maybe the core shadow could be a little bit larger here. Yeah, this one is a pretty good sphere. That's very acceptable. Same thing goes for this one. Quite acceptable. Yeah, good job. A bit more gradation here on the bounce light would be nice. You did a better job over here and over here. Again, same one for over here. Bit more bounce light. Will make it even better. Same thing over here. Your bounce light's kind of lacking a little bit on most of these, but the good one over here, that's pretty good over there. This one as well, pretty good. And remember, when you bounce the light, follow the contour. It's being followed a little bit, but not super. Not super over here. I'd still prefer to be something like that instead. See how that adds so much to the presentation? So again, it works, so try and do it. But yeah, pretty good page. That's definitely acceptable. Next page. Yeah, some of this is quite nice. Like, this is your non-reference, and this is your reference. You see how close they are already? It's quite impressive. So now you kind of figure out how to add additional light, additional bounce light, directional bounce light, these kind of things. So once you kind of marry these two ideas, I think you're going to be fine. Yeah, pretty okay. Maybe this one, remember the contour a bit more. So it's probably a little bit more like that in the reference. A bit more gradation in the core shadow would be nice. A little bit more. You're already on the right track for a lot of these. Like that one looks quite natural. Looks quite natural. Looks quite natural. This one's a little bit harsher. So just train your eye to see that. That's more harsher than that. Simple comparison. But yeah, overall pretty okay. Pretty okay. That looks okay as well. Yeah, I'm happy with what I see. Really good job with the spheres. Awesome, because spheres are not easy. So I think all of you guys did a pretty okay job. Some of you guys did really well. Definitely, I think like pages like these are better than the pages that I've seen in my classroom. This one is a bit weak, by the way. Ref 4, that's a bit weak. It's maybe a poor ref. Might want to consider that, because this doesn't look as good compared to something like this, which is without even a reference. Because the value, the contrast not that high, and the technique itself maybe not perfectly following the contour, so it could be a bit better. But yeah, overall very presentable, and definitely a stronger page than a lot of the work that I've seen in my school, so we're doing pretty good over there. I think that's everybody. I don't think we missed anybody in there. I think Monkey has a page of cubes, actually. Did I miss that? Oh, there it is. Alright, Monkey. Pretty straightforward what to fix. I think I already said to maybe affect the cast shadow a bit better. So make sure the cast shadow is nice and clean. So for this one I can show you how. Ooh, my computer's lagging. So it will be something like this instead. a bit harsher, right? And then you soften it up with an airbrush or your smudge brush or whatever. Well, this is kind of what I expect to see. Nice natural cast shadow. And the same thing with gradation, right? So you have your base values in here, and I showed you this yesterday as well, which is just go from a lighter to the base value. So just so I have some visible gradation to look at. Almost getting there with this one, almost there. Just a little bit more clean, I think, would be all the way there. So gradation, your cast shadow, so make sure it's something a little bit closer to this, and your shadow logic as well, which I explained to you yesterday. But otherwise, you're pretty good to go. I think you're on the right track. I can't wait to see you finish the whole page. Somebody asked, where do I turn in the homework? You can DM it to me, or you can put it in my classroom chat on the Discord, on the Ethan Becker Discord, for you guys on Twitch. But otherwise, I think we're pretty good to go, man. I think we're all done here. That should be everybody's homework. If you didn't get the review from me, if for some reason I missed you, feel free to just message me, and I'll go over your work with you on stream or something when I'm on the Discord. But otherwise, you're pretty good to go. I'm really happy with what I see. I should point out, like I said, like I go to like a concept art school, right? So when I saw the spheres that our class did, I think a lot of you guys actually beat most of the guys in my class. So granted, we're doing a lot more work than you throughout the week, but still, like, the work is the work. So some of you guys are doing better than all these expensive art school paying people. So fantastic work. I can't wait to have you do stuff like this for me, because then this is going to be a lot easier. Okay, so we'll convene next week for the next class. Remember, I want your 8 cylinders and your 8 cones, and you can touch base with me anytime during the week for any sort of quick thought and things like that. If you want me to just look over stuff, that'll be perfectly fine. But otherwise, we should be pretty good to go here. If there are any other last questions, we can go over them. Otherwise, we are done for today. I think the Twitch side is pretty quiet. We should be okay on that side. And the Discord seems to be okay as well. Alright guys, I think that is it for today. So turn in your homework, as always, on DMs or in the classroom. And I look forward to seeing how you guys do for your cylinders and your cones. Because once you're done with that, then stuff like this becomes so much more possible. Okay, that's it for the class. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.